From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. On this third anniversary, I want to lift as a subject for your consideration this thought: help is on the way. Help is on the way. You may claim your seats in the presence of the Lord. Most people have already moved beyond the holiday season, but for some strange reason, I'm still stuck there. In my mind, I'm still stuck on the Hallmark Channel, and replaying over and over is the rerun of one of the best Christmas movies of all time, The Preacher's Wife. And out of all of the songs that were recorded on the soundtrack, one of my favorites is the song entitled "Hold On, Help is on the Way." It was an appropriate song because for Reverend Henry Biggs, he found himself in a precarious predicament. Not only did he succeed his father-in-law, but he served in his long shadow. It seemed that no matter what he did, he failed to compare to the long and lofty work of his father-in-law. In addition to that, he was experiencing infrastructural trouble at St. Matthew's Baptist Church. The boiler was malfunctioning, the money was funny, people weren't giving, and despite the fact that they had an award-winning gospel choir led by the voice herself, they could not seem to make ends meet. And no matter which way he turned, despite all of the good that he tried to perform for both church and community, it seemed that help for him could not be found. He was trying to find an assistant pastor but could not fill the void. And he had been praying and praying and praying. And then out of nowhere, unexpectedly, the angel Dudley fell from heaven and provided the help that he had been praying for. The only problem was the help did not come in the form that he thought it would come. He thought that help would come in the form of clergy, but help came in the form of an angel who seemingly was attracted to his wife. And not only was he having trouble in the church and internally, but he was having trouble now in his own household. Compound that with the fact that his mother-in-law had been staying and had overextended her welcome. Reverend Henry Biggs was in the midst of praying for some help. And maybe you've never been pastor of the fictional St. Matthew's Baptist Church in New York, but you found yourself at a point in your life where you've been praying for help, looking toward heaven, shaking your proverbial fist, wondering, God, do you see me? Do you hear me? And do you really believe that I need some help in my life? Maybe you've gathered at the Way Community Church on the third anniversary of pastor and the church, still seemingly wondering in your spirit, God, is there any way that you can send me some help? I know that we are called to be celebratory today, but I still need some help. I know that I'm called to have faith and trust you even in moments when I cannot trace you, trail you, nor track you. But here I am in church at the 7:30 hour declaring with all humility, God, I need some help. Well, I've come on prophetic assignment all the way from 6133 Redan Road to declare to you, my brother, my sister, that no matter where you find yourself, here's some good news. Help is on the way. And can't you just preach to your neighbor, look at him early in the morning, wipe the crust out of your eye, and preach to him and tell him, neighbor, help is on the way. I know you've been crying, but help is on the way. I know you've been struggling, but help is on the way. I know that there have been moments where you didn't know which way to turn, but I've come to declare that help is on the way. As we arrive at Psalm 121, we find ourselves at the beginning of a grouping of psalms identified as Psalms of Ascent. Psalms of Ascent are categorized between Psalms 120 and Psalms 134. They are also known as pilgrimage psalms. The Jews would sing these songs of ascent as they were on their way to Jerusalem or to the temple for one of the great three Jewish festivals or to simply worship in the temple. And it's beautiful because these Psalms of Ascent ascend not only topographically, but they also ascend theologically. It is a reminder that God's goodness and God's presence is always near. And they would sing these songs as they would travel the dangerous roads, as they would scale the heights of Mount Zion toward the place where the name of God dwells. As they would sing these songs, sometimes antiphonally, with a leader singing one part and the congregation responding to the other part. They would sing with God's goodness and with the history of God's providential hand over their lives. I've come to suggest this morning, as you celebrate 3 years as church and 3 years as pastor and people, that every now and then you ought to reach back and grab a song that reminds you of God's goodness along your journey. You ought to reach back and sing songs like "Every Day is a Day of Thanksgiving." You ought to reach back and sing a song that reminds you of God's abiding presence in your life. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, oh, whither shall I go? These songs of ascent were songs of praise and thanksgiving, and even sometimes lament, but they were songs that were designed to remind every traveler, every child of God, that no matter how far they have traveled, no matter how far they have gone, that God is with them, will be with them, and has always been with them on the journey. And as we celebrate today, can't you thank God that from the origin of this family of faith, that God has been with you? Can't you thank God, Pastor Hall, that even from the infancy of your ministry, God has been with you? And we can go back even further than that. From the rocking of your cradle to this very moment, is there anybody who can slip a chocolate hand in the air and testify that God has been with me, and God has been keeping me, and God has been covering me, and God has been sheltering me, and God has been providing for me, and God has been making a way in the wilderness, and God has been bringing up streams in the desert? Is there anybody here who can thank God that God has been with you? And so the psalmist declares, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. Where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. The Lord will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forward and even forevermore. As we celebrate the fact that help is on the way, there are three very important factors that I see listed in the Psalter that are good for our consideration. The first thing that we see, number one, Dr. Hall, is that God's help is powerful. God's help is powerful. The psalmist says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? Now, quite often when we recite this psalm, we recite it with joy and thanksgiving, shouting at the onset because the hills get us excited. Oh, but brothers and sisters, before we rush to excitement, we must first understand that for the psalmist, the hills were not an exciting thing to consider. The hills, in fact, were considered a barrier to God's protection. It was in the geographical realm of Israel that everyone understood that hills were considered dangerous terrain because thieves and robbers would hide in the hills. The hills were synonymous with danger. The hills were considered a place of fear. And so whenever a traveler, a stranger from far away saw hills, they automatically thought imminent danger. And all sisters and brothers, as the Israelites were traveling from their place of origin up the lofty heights of Mount Zion to the temple where the name of God dwelled, they had to bypass some hills. They had to recognize that between where I am and where God is calling me to be, there is imminent danger. Where am I supposed to go? And upon whom can I call when I see hills in my life? And I don't know who I'm talking to this morning. Maybe you have never traveled physically on on your way to Mount Zion, but throughout your journey of life, you've encountered some hills. You've encountered some dangerous turns. You've encountered some sinister people. You've encountered some backbiters. You've encountered some enemies disguised as friends who were lying in wait for what you had and for who you had. But is there anybody here who can attest that the reason I made it is because even though I've had some hills, I have a God who sits above the hills. I have a God who has fought every battle. I have a God who keeps me. And I thank God that my help is powerful. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where will my help come from? Because my problem is the hills are powerful. There are powerful people lying in wait. And here's my one question. Do I have somebody on my side who's more powerful than the power that stands before me? Yeah, I know that as you scrolled social media this week and as you saw the meme and the image of classiness disguised as apes, you wanted to know, do I have somebody on my side who's more powerful than the hills I face? I know you're concerned about ice trucks that have been deployed where you live, and you've been wondering, do I have some help on my side who's more powerful than the hills that I face? But I've come on divine assignment to tell you that the help that you have is powerful. God's help is powerful. And the psalmist quickly reminds us that my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. I like this distinction because the hills were also synonymous for the idol gods of the world. It was believed that there was a pantheon of gods who made their residence in the hills. But when the psalmist looks at the hills, the psalmist says that my help is more powerful than what comes against me from the hills. And if you need me to make a further distinction, allow me to tell you about my help. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. In other words, there may be some other gods, lowercase g, but I have a God who sits above all other gods. I have a God who is the maker of heaven and earth. And while you may have a God for the sun and a God for the moon and a God for the sky and a God for the storms and a God for fertility and a God for vegetation, I have a God who's powerful enough, who made all of that. And the God who holds the cosmos in the hollow of his hand is the same God that grandmama knew about. He walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me that I am his own. God's help is powerful. Let me tell you how powerful he is. He won't let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Ben, I like this because it underscores just how powerful our help is. Yeah, not only is he more powerful than what waits for me in the hills, not only is he more powerful than any other God because he made heaven and earth, but then he's so powerful, he won't even let me. You want to know, Way Church, how you made it? It's because the God who walks with you won't even let you. When the road gets rough, he upholds you. When the going gets tough, he upholds you. And then here's what I like. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. It was believed in this time, sisters and brothers, that the known gods of the world, that they would have nap time. That in order to be able to faithfully attend to the prayers of the petitioners who called upon their name, they would need to rest in order to be fully recharged, to hear, respond, and to answer to the petitions of those who called upon their name. But I love what the psalmist says. The psalmist says, my God The one who fights for me, the one who walks with me, is not like that. I love it because it reminds us of what Elijah dealt with on Mount Carmel as he contended against the prophets of Baal, and as they set up their altars, and he allowed the prophets of Baal to go first, and they called on Baal, and there was no answer. And Elijah stood up in strength and in power and said, maybe your God is asleep. Maybe he's busy right now. This is straight out the text. Elijah says maybe he's in the bathroom doing number 2. Maybe he's occupied right now. But the God I serve is never on vacation. The God I serve never clocks out of being God. Is there anybody who can lift up a holy hand and thank God that your help is powerful? He neither slumbers nor sleeps. Now I lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. Help is on the way. Not only can we have confidence that our help is on the way because God's help is powerful, but then secondly, God's help is personal. God's help is personal. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Here it is. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. See, when you walk with God, when you know God to be your help, there are personal benefits that come with walking with God. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Here it is. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. I'm so glad that God takes special interest in my life. In fact, I have to be honest with you. That's the reason I'm here today. I'm not here today because I went to seminary. I'm not here today because I'm a preacher or pastor. I'm here because at some point along my journey, when I was least deserving of God's goodness and God's grace, He looked beyond my faults, supplied my need, and took special interest in my life. God's help is personal. And I like this because Psalm 121 really teaches us about God's help / keeping power. God's help / keeping power is listed here in Psalm 121 no less than 6 times to underscore that God's interest for Israel, but more so God's interest for your life, is for you to know that as long as you travel, it is God who is helping and keeping you. Yeah, that's why I'm not ashamed to tell folks about my life and about my journey. That's why I'm not ashamed to tell folks about all of the ways that God has made, because to be silent about all the doors that God has opened is to be embarrassed about God's interest in my life. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm so glad that God thinks enough of me that He would leave the lofty heights of heaven and descend to the earth just to know that I belong to Him. God's help is personal. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. I like this because as pilgrims who are traveling from their place of origin, Dr. Hall, to the place where the name of God dwells, they would be subject to the elements. They would be subject to the scorching Middle Eastern heat where the sun is merciless, and it is plausible and more than possible that as they traveled that they would be overcome by heat and dehydration. But the psalmist reminds us that because God takes special interest in you, God is able to be your shade when the sun gets too hot. God takes special interest in the intricacies of your journey and of your life. God is so personal that God will come here, Rihanna, and be your umbrella. God is so interested in who you are that he won't allow the things that you cannot control to overtake you. I'm so glad that even the sun and the moon have to be obedient to the voice and movement of God. God's help is personal. The sun shall not strike you by day, but here's where I really shout, Kelsey, nor the moon by night. Most people miss the danger of the moon. And while temperatures are cooler at night, the moon, according to the ancient understanding, brought its own set of issues. The moon was connected to lunacy. The moon was believed to be the reason as to why people went out of their minds, which is why you say today, when it's a full moon, no wonder my kids are acting crazy. The moon was tied to lunacy. And so here's what the psalmist is saying. God's help is so personal that God will shield us from the heat in the day, and God will keep us from losing our mind at night. And is there anybody here who can just thank God that in the moments when you wanted to throw in the towel, in the moments when you wanted to wave the white flag, you were reminded that you had a God who's able to keep you and to keep your mind. He will keep you in perfect peace. He whose mind is stayed on him. God's help is powerful. God's help is personal. And thirdly and finally, God's help is perpetual. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. This excites me, sisters and brothers, because I am able to appreciate that help is on the way, not only for this journey, not only for this day, not only for year 3, but for every day of my life. I thank God that all along my journey, when I could not keep myself, that I've had a God who's been keeping me. Even when I didn't know that I needed God's providential hand and care over my life. The fact that I'm here today is evidence that God's help is perpetual. God's help is in season and out of season. There's never a time in my life where God's help does not accompany me along the journey. Maybe that's why the psalmist says, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And I know that it's early in the morning, but is there anybody in the house this morning who can lift a holy hand and tell God, thank you. Thank you for being my help. I realize that my help is powerful. I realize that my help is personal. But I thank God that my help is perpetual. Each and every day of my life, I have a God who has declared that he will help me. That's why the old church had it right. Ask the Savior to help you, comfort, strengthen, and keep you. He is willing. He's willing to aid you. He will carry you through. I gotta get out of here, but my soul is happy because there have been times in my life where I felt as if I were distant from God, beyond the reach of God's outstretched arm. But it's in those times that I discovered that when I'm furthest out and deepest down, God's help is on the way. And I don't know who I've come to talk to early this morning, but would you help me preach to your neighbor? Would you look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't know what you're going through, but I've come to tell you that help is on the way. Would you find somebody else on the 3rd anniversary? Would you look them in the eye? And if you're not too mean, would you throw your arm around your neighbor? I said, throw your arm around your neighbor. Y'all ain't doing it. I said, throw your arm around your neighbor. Shake them and rock them. Rock them and shake them. And tell your neighbor, neighbor, help is on the way. I know you cried last night, but help is on the way. I know you buried a loved one, but help is on the way. And if you can't find nobody to talk to you, be like David. Lay hands on yourself and encourage yourself and tell yourself, my help is on the way. I believe that God cares about me. I believe that God sees what I'm going through, and I'm not going to wait until I see the help, but I'm going to give God glory in advance. I'm going to praise his name in advance. I'm going to glorify his name because my help is on the way. Is there anybody here who came to give him glory? Say yay! 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 Here's the thing. I'm done. Decision time counselors are coming. Psalm 121 presupposes that God already knows what you need. Pastor, God already knows what you need. Our responsibility is to walk. God's responsibility and covenant is that God will provide. Maybe you're here this morning and you've been struggling because you've been trying to figure out how to make the ends meet. I want to free about 10 of you this morning and let you know that making it work is God's responsibility.
Come on.
Trusting him is yours.
Yeah.
Your help is on the way, but so many times we veer out of our lane and into God's because we're trying to help ourselves. If you're here this morning, here's my invitation to you. Receive the help that God provides that's already available. You're weak, but God's help is powerful. You don't know what you need, but the God who created you has demonstrated that his help is personal. He won't even let you slip. I remember when Eric Jr. was learning how to walk. And I was so afraid that he would fall and hurt himself. And so to establish a relationship of trust, I would walk beside him so that when his legs got wobbly and he would lean too far to one side, I would be there to balance him so that he could learn how to walk. And I remember just last week we were at the gym playing basketball and he was walking beside me, but he kept on running into me. And I said, son, why are you so close to me? I said, give me some space. He said, Daddy, I got to stick close to you. I said, why? He said, because I know that when I walk with you, nothing can happen to me. That's my invitation to you today. Walk so close to God that you are convinced that as long as you walk with him, nothing can happen to you. If you're here and you've never made a profession of faith, on the 3rd anniversary of the Way Community Church, on Pastor and First Lady Hall's 3rd anniversary, we extend this invitation to you. Step out on faith today. Maybe you're here and you're saying, Dr. Vickers, I'm saved, I'm part of the family of faith. But maybe you're here and you're disconnected from a church home. Perhaps you're not growing where you're going. Look, Fairfield is too far. But you would be hard-pressed to find a better church than the Way Community Church. If you want to know what it's like to be loved, to be cared for, to be able to talk to the pastor and the pastor know your name and is concerned about your life and your spiritual walk, look no further than the Way Community Church. We're here. We offer Christ to you today. Just come on. You want prayer? Come on. If you're here, come on.